The impossible encounter. The merchant's last run. Captain Elena Vasquez gripped the command chair of the merchant vessel Aurora's Dream as she watched the star charts flicker across her navigation display. The 43-year-old former military officer had spent the last 5 years running cargo between Earth's outer colonies and the neutral trading posts along the Centauri route. Her weathered hands and sharp green eyes spoke of countless hours spent navigating the dangerous corridors of space, where pirates and hostile aliens made every journey a gamble. "Captain, we're approaching the Kepler Junction," announced her navigator, Lieutenant Tom Bradley. The young man's voice carried the nervous energy of someone who had heard too many stories about ships that never returned from this particular stretch of space. "All convoy ships are maintaining formation." Elena nodded, surveying her small fleet through the viewport. 8 merchant vessels, each carrying vital supplies to the struggling colonies on the rim. The Aurora's Dream led the convoy, followed by the cargo haulers Prosperity, New Dawn, and 5 smaller transports. It wasn't much of a fleet, but it was all humanity could spare for this mission. "Any word from the advanced scouts?" Elena asked her communications officer, a steady woman named Sarah Kim. "Negative, Captain. Last transmission from scout ship Hermes was 6 hours ago. They reported all clear through the junction." Elena felt the familiar knot of worry in her stomach. 6 hours was too long for a scout ship to go silent. Something was wrong. The quantum breakthrough. 3 decks below the bridge, Dr. Marcus Chen hunched over a maze of quantum processors and experimental equipment in what had once been the Aurora's Dream's secondary cargo bay. The brilliant physicist had volunteered for this mission, not to transport goods, but to test his revolutionary quantum resonance drive in deep space conditions. For 3 years, he had worked on the theoretical framework for technology that could manipulate the fundamental fabric of spacetime itself. "Elena, you need to see this." Marcus spoke into his communicator, his voice tight with excitement and concern. "The quantum readings are off the charts. Something massive is approaching our position." Chen was 38 years old, with the kind of intense focus that came from years of pushing the boundaries of known science. His black hair was disheveled from hours of work, and his dark eyes reflected the glow of his experimental equipment. The quantum resonance drive hummed softly behind him, a device that most of the scientific community believed was impossible. "I'm reading massive gravitational distortions," Marcus continued. "Whatever's coming, it's big. Really big." The alien ambush. On the bridge, Elena's worst fears materialized as her tactical officer shouted in alarm. "Captain, we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Massive energy signatures all around us." The view screen erupted with light as hundreds of alien ships materialized from the void. Elena's heart sank as she recognized the distinctive hull patterns of 3 different species: the reptilian Vorthak with their angular, predatory vessels, the insectoid Kalahari with their spherical, biomechanical ships, and the crystalline Nexari with their translucent, gem-like cruisers. "How many?" Elena demanded, though she already knew the answer would be devastating. 537 hostile vessels, Captain, reported Tactical Officer James Wright, his voice barely steady. "They've formed a complete sphere around our convoy. We're trapped." Elena stared at the tactical display in disbelief. This wasn't a pirate raid or a territorial dispute. This was a full-scale military operation designed to eliminate every human ship in the convoy. The Alien Alliance had come to make a statement, and that statement was clear. Humanity was not welcome in this part of the galaxy. The desperate gambit. Admiral Thexkar stood on the command deck of the Vorthak flagship Dominant Force, his yellow reptilian eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The massive alien commander was over 8 feet tall, with scaled skin that gleamed like polished armor and teeth that could tear through steel. He had waited months for this opportunity to demonstrate the combined might of the Tri-Species Alliance against the upstart humans. "Human vessels, this is Admiral Thexkar of the Vorthak Imperial Fleet." He broadcast on all frequencies. You have violated the territorial boundaries established by the Galactic Council. Surrender your ships immediately, or face complete annihilation. On the Aurora's Dream, Alina looked at her crew with grim determination. 8 ships against over 500. Any brilliant ideas? Actually, yes, came Marcus's voice over the intercom. Alina, I need you to trust me. The quantum resonance drive is untested, but it might be our only chance. What does it do? Alina asked, though she was already moving toward the engineering section. Theoretically, it shifts our molecular structure into a state of quantum superposition. We'd exist in multiple dimensional phases simultaneously. But Alina, we don't know if it's safe. We could all die. Alina looked at the tactical display, showing the alien fleet closing in. We're going to die anyway. Do it. The transformation. Marcus's hands flew over the quantum resonance controls as Alina reached the engineering bay. The device was a marvel of human ingenuity, combining advanced particle physics with experimental field generators. As he activated the primary sequence, the entire ship began to vibrate with a frequency that seemed to resonate in the very atoms of their bodies. All ships, this is Aurora's Dream. Alina broadcast to the convoy. Prepare for emergency quantum resonance activation. We're about to try something that's never been tested. The response from her fellow captains was immediate and unanimous. We're with you, Alina, came the voice of Captain Rodriguez from the Prosperity. Whatever you're doing, we'll follow your lead. Marcus watched his instruments as the quantum field began to stabilize. Alina, something incredible is happening. Our molecular structure is shifting into a state I've never seen before. We're not just invisible. We're existing in a space between spaces. First strike. The alien fleet opened fire with a devastating barrage of energy weapons. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes converged on the human convoy's last known position. Admiral Thexkar watched with satisfaction as his weapons lit up space with destructive power. But something impossible happened. The weapons passed through empty space where the human ships had been. On his tactical display, the human vessels appeared as ghostly, translucent images that flickered in and out of existence. What is this? Thexkar roared. Where are the human ships? Commander Zephyri, the insectoid tactical officer, clicked her mandibles in confusion. Admiral, our sensors detect the human vessels, but our weapons cannot achieve target lock. They appear to be phasing in and out of normal spacetime. On the Aurora's Dream, Alina watched in amazement as enemy fire passed harmlessly through her ship. Marcus, what have you done? I think we've achieved something that was supposed to be impossible, Marcus replied, his voice filled with wonder. We're existing in a quantum superposition that allows us to interact with normal space selectively. We can see them and affect them, but they can't touch us. Alina made a decision that would change the course of human history. All ships, attack pattern Delta. Let's show them what happens when you corner a human. Alien confusion. The Aurora's Dream moved forward like a ghost ship, its translucent hull glowing with an otherworldly blue light. Alina guided her vessel directly toward the massive Vorthek flagship, watching as the alien gunners frantically tried to target her ship. Fire all weapons, Alina commanded. The Aurora's Dream's modest defensive weapons struck the Vorthek flagship with devastating effect. The alien shields, designed to repel attacks from normal space, offered no protection against weapons fired from a quantum superposition. The dominant force shuddered under the impact, its hull cracking as energy discharges erupted across its surface. Impossible. Thexkar screamed as his flagship took damage from an enemy he couldn't see properly. How are they doing this? The other human ships followed Alina's lead, phasing through the alien formation like ghosts. The merchant vessel New Dawn passed directly through a Kalhari sphere ship, firing its weapons from inside the enemy hull. The Kalhari vessel exploded in a shower of biomechanical debris. Commander Zephyri's compound eyes widened in terror. Admiral, we're losing ships to an enemy that doesn't exist in normal space. Our weapons are useless against them. The retreat signal. As the human convoy moved through the alien fleet like phantoms of destruction, panic began to spread among the three species. Captains who had never known defeat found themselves helpless against an enemy that could strike from impossible angles and disappear before retaliation was possible. All ships, fall back. Admiral Thexkar finally ordered, his voice tight with humiliation and fear. Retreat to the outer perimeter. But the alien fleet's withdrawal was chaotic and desperate. Ships collided with each other in their haste to escape the ghostly human vessels. The carefully coordinated formation of the Tri-Species Alliance dissolved into a mob of fleeing warships. Alina watched the massive alien fleet scatter like frightened animals. All ships, maintain formation. Do not pursue. We've made our point. As the last of the alien vessels disappeared into hyperspace, Alina looked at her crew with a mixture of pride and wonder. Marcus, what have we become? I think we've just evolved beyond the physical limitations that have defined humanity for millennia, Marcus replied. We're no longer just human. We're something new. The Aurora's Dream and her convoy continued their journey through space, no longer as simple merchant vessels, but as harbingers of humanity's transformation into something the galaxy had never encountered before. The new reality. News spreads. The emergency session of Earth's Global Defense Council convened within hours of receiving Captain Vasquez's report. President Sarah Mitchell sat at the head of the polished conference table, her steel-gray hair and piercing blue eyes reflecting the gravity of the situation. At 55, she had led humanity through its most challenging period of galactic expansion, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, President Mitchell said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was hearing. 8 merchant ships faced over 500 alien warships and not only survived, but forced the entire enemy fleet to retreat. That's correct, Madam President, replied Admiral Rebecca Torres, Earth's highest-ranking military officer. Captain Vasquez's report has been verified by all 8 ship captains in the convoy. Dr. Chen's quantum resonance drive allowed our ships to exist in what he's calling dimensional phase space. Science Director James Rodriguez leaned forward, his excitement barely contained. Madam President, if Dr. Chen's preliminary data is accurate, we're looking at technology that could revolutionize not just military tactics, but our entire understanding of physics. We could make our ships, our space stations, even our planets untouchable. The investigation. Rodriguez was a man who had spent his entire career pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. At 42, he had already overseen the development of humanity's faster-than-light drives and quantum communication systems. But this discovery dwarfed everything that had come before. Dr. Chen's quantum resonance drive appears to manipulate what we call dimensional membrane boundaries, Rodriguez explained to the assembled council. Essentially, it allows matter to exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Our ships become ghostly because they're not entirely present in our normal spacetime. President Mitchell studied the technical readouts with growing amazement. What are the implications for our defense capabilities? Unlimited, Madam President. If we can't be touched by conventional weapons, we become effectively invulnerable. But more importantly, we gain the ability to strike from positions that should be impossible. Our enemies will be fighting ghosts. Alien Council. 3,000 light-years away, the Emergency Council of the Tri-Species Alliance convened on the neutral space station Nexus Prime. High Chancellor Mordun of the Nexari presided over the meeting, her crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights in prismatic patterns. The Nexari were beings of living crystal, ancient and proud, who had never known defeat in their 10,000-year history. Explain to me how 8 primitive human cargo ships defeated our combined fleet, Mordun demanded, her voice resonating like struck crystal. Admiral Thexkar stood before the council, his reptilian pride wounded but his military mind sharp. High Chancellor, the humans have developed technology that transcends our understanding of physics. Their ships exist in a state that allows them to phase through matter at will. Our weapons cannot touch them, but they can strike us from any angle. Commander Zephyr clicked her mandibles nervously. The humans have essentially become ghosts, High Chancellor. They move through space like spirits, appearing and disappearing without warning. Our tactical computers cannot calculate defense strategies against an enemy that doesn't fully exist in our reality. High Chancellor Morden's crystalline form darkened with concern. Are you telling me that these young humans have achieved dimensional transcendence? That's been theoretical for our species for millennia. It appears so, High Chancellor. Thexkar replied grimly. We are no longer fighting a species bound by the same physical laws that govern us. We are fighting something that has evolved beyond our ability to comprehend. Human evolution. Back on Earth, the implications of Dr. Chen's discovery were becoming clear. Within weeks, every human military vessel was being retrofitted with quantum resonance drives. The technology that had been created out of desperation was now being mass-produced in orbital shipyards around Earth and her colonies. Alina Vasquez found herself promoted to admiral and placed in charge of humanity's first Phantom fleet. The Aurora's Dream had been converted from a merchant vessel into the flagship of a new kind of military formation. Her crew, the first humans to experience dimensional phase shifting, had become the teachers for a new generation of ghost ship operators. The quantum resonance affects more than just our ships, Dr. Chen explained to Elena as they watched the construction of the new fleet from the Aurora's Dream's observation deck. The crews are changing too. Our neural patterns are adapting to exist in multiple dimensions. We're not just operating ghost ships, we're becoming ghosts ourselves. Elena looked at her hands, noting the faint blue glow that had become permanent since their first encounter with the alien fleet. Are we still human, Marcus? We're human, Marcus replied thoughtfully. But we're also something more. We're humanity's next evolutionary step, forced by necessity into a new form of existence. The test of power. The real test of humanity's new capabilities came when the Vorthok Empire launched a massive invasion of the Ta Ceti system, hoping to catch human forces before they could fully deploy their new technology. 5,000 Vorthok warships, the largest fleet ever assembled, dropped out of hyperspace expecting to face conventional human defenses. Instead, they found 50 human ships that flickered like mirages in the void. Admiral Elena Vasquez commanded the defense from the Aurora's Dream, now armed with weapons specifically designed to fire from dimensional phase space. All ships engage quantum resonance. Let's show them what we've learned. The human ships disappeared from normal spacetime, becoming translucent phantoms that moved through the Vorthok fleet like vengeful spirits. Energy weapons fired from impossible angles, striking the alien vessels from within their own hulls. Vorthok ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light as human forces attacked from dimensions the aliens couldn't perceive or defend against. Within 3 hours, the massive Vorthok invasion fleet was in full retreat. 5,000 warships flooded from 50 human ghost ships that had emerged from the spaces between reality itself. Diplomatic shift. The news of humanity's victory at Ta Ceti sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Species that had never considered humans a threat suddenly found themselves facing an enemy that could not be defeated by conventional means. Emergency diplomatic channels opened for the first time in decades as the galactic powers realized they needed to find a peaceful solution to the human problem. Madam President, announced Earth's diplomatic corps leader, Ambassador Chen Wei. We're receiving formal requests for negotiations from over 30 alien species. They want to discuss territorial boundaries and trade agreements. President Mitchell smiled grimly. Funny how diplomatic they become when they realize they can't simply blast us out of space. Set up the negotiations, but make it clear that humanity will not be confined to any boundaries established by others. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. Humanity was no longer the young, aggressive species that older civilizations needed to contain. They had become something unprecedented, a civilization that existed partially outside the normal constraints of space and time. The new balance. High Chancellor Morden stood in her private chambers aboard Nexus Prime, contemplating the reports from her intelligence networks. The humans had not only survived their first major test, but had emerged stronger than ever. More disturbing, they seemed to be evolving rapidly, with each new generation of ghost ship operators displaying capabilities that surpassed their predecessors. "They're not just using dimensional technology," she murmured to herself. "They're becoming dimensional beings. In a few generations, they may transcend physical existence entirely." The thought was both terrifying and fascinating. The Nexeri had spent millennia trying to achieve dimensional transcendence through meditation and technological enhancement. The humans had accomplished it accidentally, through desperation and the brilliant insight of a single scientist. Future implications. Dr. Marcus Chen stood in his new laboratory on Luna Base, watching the construction of humanity's first dimensional research facility. The quantum resonance drive had been just the beginning. His teams were now developing technology that could allow entire cities to phase shift, making human colonies literally untouchable by hostile forces. "We're not just changing how we fight," he told his research team. "We're changing what it means to be human. In 50 years, our descendants may exist primarily in dimensional phase space, touching normal reality only when they choose to." The implications were staggering. Humanity was evolving beyond the physical limitations that had defined every other species in the galaxy. They were becoming something new, something that existed in the spaces between worlds, in the gaps between dimensions. Elena Vasquez, now commanding Earth's entire Phantom Fleet, understood the responsibility that came with their new abilities. "We're not just protecting humanity anymore," she told her officers. "We're protecting the future of consciousness itself. We've shown the galaxy that evolution doesn't have to be limited by physical laws." The Aurora's dream. The simple merchant vessel that had accidentally discovered dimensional phase shifting had become a symbol of humanity's transformation. From the desperate cargo run that had started it all, to the new reality where humans moved like ghosts among the stars, the journey represented everything that made humanity unique. The ability to adapt, to evolve, and to transcend the limitations that others accepted as absolute. As the ghost ships of humanity patrolled the dimensional boundaries between worlds, the galaxy learned a new truth: that consciousness, creativity, and the human spirit could not be contained by the physical laws that governed matter and energy. Humanity had become something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that existed wherever they chose to exist, untouchable by those who could not understand the spaces between spaces. The age of dimensional humanity had begun, and the universe would never be the same.